Take your hands off her before I forget you are a guest in my house." The crystal pitcher slipped from Celeste Harrington's fingers, struck the marble floor, and shattered beneath the silence of 20 horrified servants. Water streamed through the dark hair of Elena Brooks, the curvy maid kneeling beside the broken breakfast tray, her yellow gloves pressed against the floor as she fought not to cry. Seconds earlier, Celeste had been laughing while pouring the entire pitcher over Elena's head, calling her clumsy, slow, and too embarrassing to be seen in a mansion like this. Now, nobody laughed. Standing inside the open doors of the Moretti estate was Vincent Moretti, the 38-year-old mafia boss whose name could empty a courtroom, freeze a nightclub, or end a $1 million deal with one quiet phone call. He had returned from Chicago 3 days early without warning, dressed in black, his broad shoulders filling the doorway as sunlight burned behind him. Vincent was rich enough to own half the waterfront, and feared enough that armed men lowered their eyes when he entered a room. Yet the expression on his face was not rage. Rage would have been safer. What Elena saw was cold control, sharpened by something personal. Celeste slowly turned, her red dress untouched by the water spreading across the marble. "Vincent, darling, this is not what it looks like." His gaze never moved from Elena. "Then explain why she is on her knees." Elena wished the floor would open beneath her. At 31, she had learned how quickly people judged a woman by the space her body occupied. At restaurants, strangers stared when she ordered dessert. At her last job, co-workers whispered that her size made her lazy, though she worked double shifts while caring for her injured father. When the medical bills swallowed their savings, she took the live-in maid position at the Moretti estate because it paid well and provided health insurance. She told herself dignity could survive a uniform. She had not expected Celeste, Vincent's elegant socialite fiancée, to make humiliating her a daily ritual. Elena lowered her head. "I dropped the tray, Mr. Moretti. Miss Harrington was upset." Celeste gave a victorious smile, but Vincent noticed what everyone else missed. Elena was not protecting herself. She was protecting the young kitchen helper, trembling near the staircase, a 16-year-old boy named Noah, who had actually stumbled while carrying the tray. Elena had stepped forward and taken the blame before Celeste could have him fired. Vincent walked across the wet floor, each measured step making the servants retreat. He stopped beside Elena, close enough that she saw a thin scar near his jaw and the exhaustion hidden behind his dark eyes. For 11 years, Vincent had trusted no one fully. His younger brother had betrayed him for money. His mother had died believing the family could still be saved, and every woman introduced to him seemed more interested in his name than the man carrying it. Celeste had been chosen because their marriage would unite two powerful families, not because he loved her. Love was a weakness Vincent believed he had buried. Then he looked at Elena, soaked, shaking, and still shielding someone weaker than herself. "Stand up," he said. She tried, but her wet shoe slipped. Vincent caught her by the forearm before she fell. The room seemed to inhale at once. He never touched staff. He rarely touched anyone. Elena pulled away quickly, embarrassed by the water clinging to her uniform. "I'm sorry." Vincent's eyes hardened. "For what?" "Making a mess." He removed his black suit jacket and placed it around her shoulders, covering the soaked fabric before anyone else could stare. His voice dropped, meant only for her. "You are not the mess." Celeste's face turned pale. "You cannot be serious. She is a maid." Vincent finally looked at his fiancée. "Her name is Elena Brooks. Use it." The command landed harder than a shout. Elena looked up, startled that he knew her full name. Vincent had reviewed every employee file after a security breach 6 months earlier, but that was not why he remembered hers. He remembered the handwritten note attached to her application, where she had asked whether unused kitchen food could be donated to a local shelter instead of thrown away. He remembered approving the request without ever meeting her. Celeste crossed her arms. She ruined a priceless porcelain set. Elena's stomach tightened. The broken plates were worth more than her yearly salary. Vincent crouched beside the shattered pieces, ignoring the shock around him. Among the white porcelain fragments lay something that did not belong there, a small silver button engraved with a serpent. He picked it up between 2 fingers. The warmth disappeared from his face. That symbol belonged to the Belandi family, his most dangerous rivals, and no Belandi soldier should have been inside his home. Vincent looked at Elena's wrist and saw a fresh bruise beneath her wet sleeve. "Who did this to you?" Elena froze. Celeste's confidence vanished. Near the staircase, Noah began to cry. Vincent rose slowly, closing his fist around the silver button. He had come home expecting to expose a traitor inside his organization. Instead, he had found a wounded maid protecting his staff, his fiancée standing over her, and proof that an enemy had entered the mansion. Then Elena whispered 5 words that changed everything. "They were searching your bedroom." Vincent's fist tightened around the silver serpent button. "Lock every gate," he ordered, and the mansion came alive with the precision of a military command center. 2 guards sealed the front entrance, another lowered the steel shutters over the lower windows, and the household staff were moved into the library under watch. Celeste stepped toward him, trying to regain control. "Vincent, this is absurd. You are frightening everyone over the imagination of a servant." He turned his head slowly. "You poured water over a woman who was already injured, and your first concern is being embarrassed." Celeste's lips parted, but no answer came. Vincent looked at his security chief, Marco De Luca. "Escort Miss Harrington to the east sitting room. She leaves when I say she leaves." Celeste stared at him. "I am your fiancée." "Then you should have known better than to disrespect someone under my roof." The entire staff heard him. So did Elena. For the first time since taking the job, she felt the weight of the mansion shift away from the people who had judged her and toward the man standing beside her. Vincent offered his hand, but he did not touch her until she chose to place her fingers in his. He helped her rise carefully, keeping his body between her and the staring room. His jacket hung around her shoulders, warm and heavy, carrying the faint scent of cedar and rain. "Tell me what happened," he said. Elena glanced toward Noah. "He did nothing wrong." "I asked about you." His voice remained firm, but the sharpness had softened. Elena swallowed. "Last night around 2, I heard glass break upstairs. I thought one of the windows had been left open, so I went to check. 2 men were inside your bedroom. They wore maintenance uniforms, but one had that silver symbol on his cuff." Vincent's expression became unreadable. "Why was this not reported?" "I tried. Miss Harrington said you were not to be disturbed while travelling. She told me I would be fired if I made accusations without proof." From the hallway, Celeste shouted that Elena was lying, but Vincent did not even look in her direction. "Continue." Elena rubbed the bruise on her wrist. "One of them caught me. I screamed, and Noah came running with a fireplace poker. They escaped through the balcony before security arrived. Miss Harrington told the guards I had broken a vase and invented the story to avoid paying for it." Marco's face darkened. There was no incident in the nightly report. Vincent looked at him. Then someone erased it. He led Elena toward the kitchen, where the light was softer and the marble gave way to worn oak floors. He ordered everyone else out, then opened the medical cabinet himself. Elena watched in confusion as the most feared man in the city rolled up his sleeves and took out an ice pack. "You do not have to do that," she said. "I know." He wrapped the pack in a clean towel before holding it toward her. "May I?" The question surprised her more than his anger had. Elena nodded, and Vincent gently placed the cold compress against her wrist. His hands were large and scarred, yet his grip was careful. "Most people in this house would have stayed behind a locked door," he said. "You walked toward 2 intruders. Noah was sleeping in the room across the hall. So you risked yourself for him." Elena looked away. "He is 16. He should not have to fight grown men alone." Vincent studied her face. She was still soaked, mascara faintly smudged beneath her eyes, humiliation clinging to her more painfully than the wet uniform. Yet she had not asked for money, revenge, or sympathy. She had only protected the boy. "You will not lose your job," he said, "and the broken porcelain will not come out of your pay." Elena gave a tired laugh without humour. "Miss Harrington will make certain I leave eventually. Celeste does not employ you. She will be your wife." The words landed between them. Vincent removed the ice pack and placed it on the counter. That decision was made for business reasons. Business reasons still become real marriages. For the first time, someone had spoken to him without fear or flattery. Vincent should have been offended. Instead, he almost smiled. "You are very honest for someone surrounded by armed men." "I have been surrounded by cruel people before. Weapons are not always the dangerous part." Her answer silenced him. A moment later, Marco entered carrying a small black device. "We found this beneath the desk in your bedroom. Audio transmitter, military grade. Whoever planted it had access for at least a week." Vincent's gaze sharpened. "Check every employee entry log." Marco hesitated. "We already did. The system shows no unauthorized access." Elena suddenly stood. "The men did not use the staff entrance." Both men looked at her. "How do you know?" Vincent asked. "Their shoes were dry. It rained all night and every path from the gates was soaked. They came from somewhere inside the house." Vincent understood immediately. The estate had one private underground passage, known only to family members and senior security. The intruders had not broken in. Someone had brought them inside. Then Elena reached into the pocket of her wet apron and pulled out a folded card she had been too frightened to show anyone. On the front was the same silver serpent. Inside, written in red ink, were 6 words: "Tell Moretti," and the boy disappears. Vincent read the threat twice, then looked at Noah through the kitchen doorway. The boy stood between 2 guards, pale and rigid, trying not to show fear. "Nobody leaves this house," Vincent said. "Nobody approaches Noah without my permission." Marco took the card, but Elena held on for 1 second longer. "They knew I would protect him." Vincent met her eyes. "Then they have been watching you." The realization struck harder than the threat itself. Elena had believed the intruders noticed her only because she wandered into the wrong hallway. Now she understood that someone had studied her routines, her kindness, and the people she cared about. Vincent saw the fear enter her face and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You are not facing this alone." Before Elena could answer, a guard appeared at the door. "Sir, Miss Harrington is demanding to call her father." Vincent's expression cooled. "Her phone." The guard handed it over. The screen showed 11 missed calls from Senator Richard Harrington, Celeste's father, and the man whose political influence had protected Moretti shipping contracts for years. The marriage between Vincent and Celeste was supposed to be announced at a charity gala that evening. If Vincent publicly rejected her, Harrington could destroy the alliance, freeze permits, and expose enough financial records to invite federal scrutiny. Celeste knew it, and when she entered the kitchen without permission, her confidence had returned. "My father expects the announcement at 8, she said. "If you embarrass me over this woman, you will lose more than a fiancé." Elena moved away from Vincent, suddenly aware of how much stood between them. She was a maid in a wet uniform. Celeste wore diamonds and carried the power of an entire political family. Vincent noticed Elena's retreat. "You threatened her job after she reported intruders." Celeste crossed her arms. "I stopped a hysterical employee from creating panic." "She was injured. She is always looking for sympathy." Elena's cheeks burned, but she kept her voice steady. "I never asked you for anything." Celeste smiled without warmth. "You asked for his attention the moment you let him put that jacket around you." Vincent stepped between them before Elena could respond. "Enough." One word silenced the room. Celeste's eyes narrowed. "You still do not understand. The Bellandis want you distracted. They send a frightened maid, a crying boy, and a convenient little symbol, and suddenly you are ready to destroy our future." Marco placed the silver button beside the threat card. "The button is authentic. Or planted." Celeste pointed at Elena. "Search her room." Elena stared at her. Vincent did not move. "Why would you suggest that?" Celeste's answer came too quickly. "Because she is the only person claiming she saw the intruders." The kitchen fell silent. Vincent studied his fiancée as if seeing a stranger behind a familiar face. "Marco," he said, "search every room on the staff floor. Elena goes with you." Celeste looked satisfied, believing she had won. Elena felt the opposite. "Mr. Moretti, I have nothing to hide." "I know," Vincent said. "That is why you will watch them search." 20 minutes later, they entered Elena's small room at the end of the west corridor. It contained one narrow bed, a second-hand dresser, 3 library books, and a framed photograph of Elena beside an older man in a wheelchair. Vincent paused at the photograph. "Your father?" "Daniel Brooks. Construction accident 3 years ago." Elena opened the top drawer herself. Inside were neatly folded uniforms and envelopes marked with hospital payment dates. Vincent said nothing, but his jaw tightened when he saw how little she kept for herself. Marco searched beneath the mattress and stopped. He pulled out a black velvet pouch. Elena's face drained of colour. "That is not mine." Inside was a diamond bracelet bearing Celeste's initials and a flash drive marked with the Moretti family crest. Celeste, who had followed with a guard, gasped dramatically. "My bracelet. I reported it missing last week." Elena stepped backward. "Someone put those there." Vincent took the drive but did not accuse her. "What is on it?" Marco connected it to a secure tablet. The screen displayed shipping routes, private account numbers, and security schedules for the Moretti estate. Information worth millions to the Belandi family. Celeste turned toward the guards. "She is the traitor. Call the police." Elena's breathing became shallow. Every old humiliation returned at once, every person who had assumed her poor, desperate, and easy to blame. Yet she lifted her chin. "I did not steal anything." Vincent watched her closely. She did not beg. She did not collapse. She stood alone while the room turned against her. "No police," he said. Celeste looked stunned. "You cannot protect her from evidence." Vincent held up the flash drive. Evidence this perfect is usually designed to be found. Then Marco's phone rang. He listened for 3 seconds and the colour left his face. "The security team lost Noah." Elena spun toward him. "What do you mean, lost him?" "The guards escorting him received an emergency order using my authorization code. They took him to the underground garage." Vincent's eyes went cold. "I gave no such order." A deafening crash echoed from below, followed by the roar of an engine. Elena ran for the stairs, but Vincent caught her hand. "You stay with me." They reached the garage as the outer gate began to close. A black SUV was speeding toward the road, Noah visible through the rear window, pounding against the glass. Elena shouted his name. The vehicle disappeared beyond the gates, leaving only a trail of smoke and one final message flashing across Vincent's phone. "Bring Elena Brooks to Pier 9 before midnight, or the boy will not come home." The message gave Vincent 4 hours, but Elena needed only 4 seconds to make her decision. "Take me to Pier 9. Vincent turned from the disappearing SUV, his face carved from stone. "No. They have Noah because of me. They have Noah because someone inside this house sold them access. That will not matter if he is hurt." Vincent stepped closer until the noise of the closing gate seemed to vanish around them. "You are not walking into a trap to make their work easier." Elena pulled his jacket tighter around her wet shoulders. "You do not get to decide that for me." Marco and the guards went still. No one spoke to Vincent Moretti that way, especially while his enemies were threatening his home. But instead of anger, something wounded crossed his eyes. "You are right," he said quietly. "I do not get to control you, but I can ask you to trust me long enough to bring him back." Elena looked toward the empty road. "Trust is expensive in this house. Then let me earn it." Vincent ordered Marco to trace the SUV while he carried the flash drive into his private security room. Elena followed, refusing to be hidden away. The room had no windows, only dark monitors, steel cabinets and a digital map of the estate glowing across one wall. Marco opened the files again, but this time Elena noticed a faded construction stamp in the corner of a blueprint. D. Brooks Engineering. Her breath caught. "That is my father's name." Vincent looked at her. "Your father worked on this estate?" "Before his accident. He never told me which client." She moved closer to the screen. The blueprint showed the underground passage leading from the mansion to an abandoned greenhouse beyond the eastern wall. Beside it was a second route ending near the river. Vincent's expression darkened. Only my family and the original engineer knew these tunnels existed. Elena stared at the date. 3 years earlier, 2 weeks before her father fell from a construction platform and lost the use of his legs. Her phone rang from an unknown number. Vincent signaled Marco to record the call before Elena answered. Her father's strained voice filled the room. "Elena, listen to me. Do not go to Pier 9. Dad, how do you know? Because this began with me." Daniel Brooks confessed that he had discovered Senator Harrington secretly modifying the estate tunnels during a renovation. Crates were being moved beneath the mansion without Vincent's knowledge, and men wearing the Belandi serpent had met with Harrington's security team after midnight. Daniel copied the construction records and threatened to report them. The next morning, the safety cable on his platform failed. "It was not an accident," Elena whispered. "No," Daniel said, "and the files they planted in your room are not Vincent's secrets. They are mine. I hid proof inside the drive, encrypted beneath the shipping documents. Someone must have found the copy and used it to frame you." Vincent leaned toward the phone. "Mr. Brooks, who knew you had the evidence?" Daniel hesitated. "Celeste Harrington." The door behind them slammed. Celeste stood there between two guards, her perfect composure finally broken. "This is ridiculous. A crippled contractor and a desperate maid are not credible witnesses." Vincent's gaze became lethal. "You knew about the tunnels." "My father knows everything built in this city. Did you help the Bellandis enter my home?" Celeste laughed, but her eyes shifted toward the monitors. That tiny movement was enough. Marco decrypted the hidden partition, and a video file appeared. The footage came from Daniel's old inspection camera inside the passage. On the screen, Celeste opened the underground door for two Bellandi men. She handed one of them a photograph of Noah and another of Elena. Her recorded voice was clear. "Use the boy. She will surrender herself, and Vincent will destroy his alliance trying to save her." Elena's knees weakened. Vincent caught her before she fell, then lowered himself in front of her so she would not have to look up at him. "This was never your fault. Noah was chosen because he matters to me. No, he was chosen because they mistook your loyalty for weakness." Vincent gently removed the ruined glove from her bruised hand. "It is the strongest thing in this house." For one unguarded second, Elena saw the lonely man beneath the Mafia Boss, a man who had spent years believing everyone close to him carried a hidden price. She touched the scar near his wrist. "And what did trusting people cost you?" "Almost everything." His fingers closed carefully around hers. "Do not make me lose the first person who has made me want to try again." The softness in his voice frightened her more than his power. Before she could answer, every monitor went black. A live video replaced the security feeds. Noah sat tied to a chair inside a warehouse, frightened but unharmed. Behind him, a digital clock counted down from 30 minutes. A distorted voice said, "Bring Elena alone, or the river takes the boy." Vincent turned to issue orders, but the lights suddenly died. Emergency alarms screamed through the mansion. In the darkness, someone struck a guard. A door opened and footsteps raced down the corridor. When the power returned 11 seconds later, Celeste was gone. So was Elena. On the floor lay Vincent's jacket and a note written in Elena's hand. "I could not let Noah pay for my life." Vincent lifted the jacket and found one thing missing from its lining, the tracking pin he had placed there before entering the security room. Elena had not gone blindly. She had taken the tracker with her. Then Marco looked at the map and whispered, "She is already inside the river tunnel." Vincent checked the ammunition in his weapon and stared at the pulsing signal moving beneath the city. "Open every gate," he said. "Tonight I am choosing her over all of them." The tracking signal moved beneath the city at 40 miles per hour, following the abandoned river tunnel toward Pier 9. Vincent rode in the lead SUV with Marco beside him and 6 trusted men behind them, but his attention never left the pulsing red dot on the tablet. 22 minutes remained on Noah's countdown. "She knew we would follow," Marco said. Vincent stared through the rain, striking the windshield. "She also knew they would search her." The tracker was not hidden in Elena's clothing. Before leaving the mansion, she had slipped it inside the lining of Celeste's stolen handbag, betting that Celeste would lead her directly to whoever controlled the operation. It was brave, intelligent, and dangerous enough to make Vincent's chest tighten. At the end of the tunnel, the signal stopped beneath an old warehouse overlooking the river. Vincent divided his men between the upper loading dock and the flooded service entrance, then entered through the shadows with Marco. Inside, industrial lights burned above stacks of sealed crates marked with Moretti shipping codes. Noah remained tied to the chair on the central platform, the digital clock behind him showing 14 minutes. Elena stood 20 feet away with her hands visible, facing Celeste and Senator Richard Harrington. Beside the senator waited Luca Bellandi, heir to the rival family, flanked by armed men. Elena's apron was gone, but she still wore her wet maid's uniform beneath a borrowed grey coat. She looked frightened, yet she stood upright. I came alone, she said. Let the boy go. Harrington smiled. You came exactly as expected. Celeste searched Elena's pockets and found nothing. Where is Vincent's jacket? At the mansion. Then she has no tracker, Celeste said. Hidden above them on the metal walkway, Vincent watched Elena glance once toward the warehouse sprinkler pipes. It was not a frightened glance. It was a signal. During the drive through the tunnel, she had torn a strip from her uniform and tied it around a valve near the entrance, marking the only pipe connected to the emergency fire system. Vincent understood. Elena had studied the warehouse before stepping into the open. Harrington placed a document on a table. Sign this confession. You will admit that you stole Moretti files, helped the Bellandis enter the estate, and kidnapped Noah after Vincent discovered your theft. Elena looked at the paper. And then, the boy walks away. You expect me to believe that? Luca Bellandi stepped closer. You are in no position to negotiate. Elena lifted her chin. Then why do you need my signature? The room went quiet. Even Vincent felt a flash of pride. Harrington's smile disappeared. Elena continued, Daniel Brooks kept evidence against you. If I were only a disposable maid, you would have left me at the mansion. You brought me here because you do not know where the original records are. Celeste struck the table with her palm. Tell us where your father hid them. Release Noah first. Harrington nodded to one of the guards, who loosened the rope around the boy's ankles but left his hands bound. That is all you get. Elena stepped toward the table and picked up the pen. Vincent saw the tremor in her fingers, but she did not sign. Instead, she knocked a metal lamp into the sprinkler pipe. The bulb shattered, sparks flashed, and she pulled the marked valve open with both hands. Water exploded from the ceiling. The warehouse lights flickered. Noah dropped sideways with his chair, using the loosened rope to kick the countdown device off the platform. Vincent and Marco moved immediately. Their men entered from both sides while Bellandi's guards scattered in confusion. Vincent reached Elena first, shielding her behind a steel support as shots struck the crates nearby. You came, she breathed. You left me a trail. I was not sure you would understand. Vincent cupped the back of her head and checked her face for injuries. I understand you better than anyone in this room. Marco freed Noah and pulled him toward the service exit. Celeste tried to follow, but Elena stepped into her path. You used a child because you thought kindness made me easy to control. Celeste raised her hand, but Elena caught her wrist. You were wrong. She pushed the stolen handbag across the wet floor toward Marco. Inside, beneath Celeste's phone, was a recorder Elena had activated during the tunnel ride. Harrington's voice played through the warehouse speakers, confessing that he ordered Daniel's safety cable cut and arranged the false evidence in Elena's room. The Bellandi men turned toward the senator, realizing he had exposed everyone. Vincent looked at Harrington. Your alliance is finished. Harrington pulled a small remote from his coat. So is your empire. Red warning lights appeared across the crates. They were not shipping containers. They were filled with fuel, wired to destroy the warehouse and every document inside it. The countdown behind Noah changed from 7 minutes to 60 seconds. Vincent ordered everyone toward the river exit, but Harrington aimed at Elena. Vincent stepped in front of her as the weapon fired. He staggered, one hand pressing against his side. Elena caught him before he fell. Vincent. He looked at the exit, then at the timer showing 42 seconds. Get Noah out. Elena wrapped his arm around her shoulders and refused to move without him. We leave together. Behind them, Celeste seized Harrington's remote and locked the steel exit doors. The timer reached 30 seconds, and Vincent realized the only manual release was across the warehouse, directly beside Luca Bellandi. 28 seconds remained when Elena saw the faded construction symbol painted beneath the control panel. It was the same mark from her father's blueprints, a red triangle indicating an emergency pressure release hidden below the platform. Marco, get Noah behind the concrete wall, she shouted. Vincent tightened his arm around her shoulders, blood spreading beneath his hand, but his voice stayed controlled. Elena, you leave now. She looked directly at him. You asked me to trust you. Now trust me. Before he could stop her, she lowered him carefully beside a steel column and ran across the flooded floor. Luca Belandi raised his weapon, but Elena hurled Celeste's handbag into his face and slid beneath the platform as Marco's men covered her. The timer reached 19 seconds. She found the red lever locked beneath a rusted metal plate. It would not move. "Dad," she whispered, remembering how Daniel had taught her that old pressure systems required the safety pin to be pushed inward before the handle could turn. Elena drove both hands against the pin, ignoring the pain in her bruised wrist, then pulled with all her strength. The lever dropped. A deafening alarm filled the warehouse, and steel fire barriers descended around the wired crates, sealing them inside reinforced compartments. The timer reached 3 seconds. The blast struck behind the barriers with a thunderous force, shaking the building and throwing Elena onto the wet floor, but the reinforced walls contained the worst of it. Vincent reached her before the smoke cleared. He dropped to one knee despite his injury and gathered her against his chest. "Look at me," he said, his voice rough for the first time. Elena opened her eyes. "Noah? Safe. You? Still here because of you." Behind them, Marco's men disarmed Luca and captured the remaining guards. Senator Harrington tried to escape through the river passage, but Noah, still shaken, pointed toward the recorder floating beside the platform. "He confessed to everything," the boy said. Marco recovered the device and secured the audio file before leading Harrington away. Celeste stood near the locked exit, her red dress soaked and torn, staring at Vincent as if she could still command him. "You cannot do this," she said. "My father will ruin you. The announcement, the contracts, the alliance, everything we built will disappear." Vincent rose slowly, one hand pressed to his wounded side while the other remained around Elena's shoulders. "There is no alliance." Celeste's face hardened. "You would throw away an empire for a maid?" Vincent looked at Elena, at the woman who had protected Noah, uncovered the tunnel, faced armed enemies, and saved every person in the warehouse. Then he turned back to Celeste. "No. I am protecting my empire from the people who mistook cruelty for power." He removed the engagement ring from his pocket and placed it on the table beside Harrington's unsigned confession. "The marriage is cancelled." Celeste glanced around for support, but no one moved. For the first time, the woman who had humiliated Elena stood alone while Elena stood beside the most powerful man in the room. Vincent did not order Elena to follow him. He simply offered his hand. "May I?" Her eyes filled with tears, not from shame this time, but from being asked. She placed her hand in his. By sunrise, Vincent was in a private hospital room with a clean bandage around his side and 3 doctors insisting the wound had missed anything vital. Elena sat in the chair beside him, still wearing his black jacket over her borrowed clothes. Noah was asleep in the next room under Marco's protection, and Daniel Brooks was being transferred to a secure rehabilitation center at Vincent's expense. When Elena learned what Vincent had arranged, she shook her head. "I cannot accept charity." "It is not charity," he said. "Your father's evidence saved my family and exposed a network operating beneath my home. He will be paid for the work they stole from him." Elena studied him. "And what happens to me?" Vincent's expression softened. "Whatever you choose." "You are not firing me. I am offering you a position overseeing the household and staff security, with authority to report directly to me. But you do not owe me your work, your gratitude, or your affection." She smiled faintly. "That may be the first honest job offer I have ever received." 3 months later, the Moretti estate no longer felt like the place where Elena had once knelt on a marble floor. Harrington and Celeste faced charges supported by Daniel's records, the warehouse confession, and the hidden camera footage. Noah returned to school under Vincent's protection and spent weekends helping Daniel design safer housing for injured workers. Elena accepted the new position, but her greatest change could not be measured by a title. She stopped lowering her eyes when guests entered. She stopped apologizing for taking up space. And when cruel whispers followed her at a charity dinner, Vincent walked across the ballroom, took her hand in front of everyone, and asked her to dance. "They are staring," she whispered. "Let them," he replied. "They spent years failing to see you. That is their shame, not yours." Months later, beneath warm lights in the estate garden, Vincent knelt before Elena with no political families, no business contracts, and no audience except Daniel, Noah, Marco, and the people who had become their family. He did not promise to rescue her. He promised to respect her choices, protect her dignity, and never ask her to become smaller so others could feel comfortable. Elena said yes because he had learned to trust, because she had learned to stand tall, and because they had saved each other long before either of them understood it. A mafia boss came home unannounced and found a Curvy Maid being humiliated. But what changed everything was not his power. It was her courage, his decision to see her worth, and the moment they both chose love over fear. Would you have trusted Vincent after everything Elena had endured, or would you have walked away? Share your answer and subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia Boss stories where loyalty is tested, dignity is defended, and the person everyone overlooks becomes impossible to forget.